This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
So here we are recalculating Billy's income tax liability, assuming that the bank deposit interest is now gone up dramatically to £25,000. Okay, so again, I'm going to set out the pro forma for Billy, give him a heading, Billy, income tax computation. $23.24, non-savings, savings, total, trading income, was 27,500. Now his savings income is now 25,000. Let's put them in the total column. As you progress in your tax studies, you will get to do this in one column, but at the moment, for the time being, we're just going to do it in 3 columns because that's what TX expects. So this is our total income. Always double check all your maths, please, as we found out in example number 1. Less personal allowance. I'll get it right this time. Put the lines in. This is now his taxable income. And we're looking at 14,930, 25,000, which gives us a total of 39,930. Double underline, I have finished this computation. Now, notice he's now a high rate taxpayer. The total column tells us that he earns more than £37,700. He's now a high rate taxpayer. Therefore, the rate at which he is going to pay tax is going to change. So let's have a look at part 2 of our computation and do the tax calculation. Nice, clear, well labelled. Okay. So again, remember the order. Non-savings, savings, dividends. So non-savings, we've got 14,930, 20%, which gives us 2,986. Now, savings income. This is going to be different this time because the man is high rate. So he's only going to be entitled to a £500 of that income at the nil rate band. Again, no pennies on there. Okay. Now, this is still in basic rate. However, at some point, he's going to move into the high rate bracket. So what I always do now, 37,700, check that. That's where basic rate becomes high rate. Now, we have already charged 14,930 and £500 to basic rate. So we only have a balance before we hit the high rate. So £22,270 of the savings income, so we're looking at this income now, is going to be taxed at basic rate. Okay, so this is your subtotal. The total of that income comes to 37,700. Now we've only taxed £500 and 22,270. 270. So we have a balance of £2,230. Now I know that's true because if you look here, the total is 39,930. So that's a balancing figure between the basic rate band and the total. And that's also a balancing figure. And that's why this safety net here is so important. Because you've split that savings income into 3 different sections. The nil rate band, some of it at basic rate, 20%, and this is taxed at 40%. So please show all the breakdown of every time you are doing a calculation. Don't just work it out in the calculator and stick the answer down. If the answer is correct, then you could get 4 marks. However, if the answer is incorrect, you will actually get, let me just finish this off and I'll show you what I mean, 892. It's that, so that a total of 8332. Okay. So say for example, let me change the colour of my pen so that you can see what I mean. Let's go for a nice red. Okay. If you had calculated that correctly and that correctly, however, you had done that incorrectly, but you had taxed it at 20%, should be a figure in there, 4454. Okay, but instead of doing that, you'd put 4545, for example. Okay, and you'd done that, and instead of putting that, you'd put £982, but you'd put the correct figure and the correct amount. And say there were 3 marks for this little bit that we're doing now. You'd get 1 mark for doing the non-savings income, half a mark for getting, no, sorry, 1 mark because you've got the rule. So you get 1 for that, 1 for that because you've done it correctly with the rule. Now, this here, you'll get 1 mark for that because all you've done is made an error. This one you wouldn't get any marks for, obviously. However, if you added up 2986, 4545 and 982 and came up with whatever the answer is and just stuck the answer down without any calculations shown on your exam paper, won't get any marks at all, because the examiner and the mark, they don't know what you've done. They don't know how you got to that unusual figure. So show every calculation all the way through, because you will then get, if there are 3 marks, you've probably got 2.5, or maybe 2.5. If you add the total up, you've got nothing. Okay, so important. So here we are, we've done Billy's income tax situation with a small amount of bank deposit and a large amount of bank deposit. Now, there is also a starting rate. This is where it gets confusing. Okay, now this is a starting rate, not a nil rate band. So the starting rate only applies where the savings income falls in the first £5,000 of taxable income. Okay, now in both situations, Billy had savings income of more than that, and therefore he wasn't entitled to this starting rate. This is for somebody who's probably only got income from institutions, from banks, buildings, and banks, building societies, and dividends. The majority of people have an income which they've earned or from a job or from self-employment that exceeds that £5,000. So what we're going to do is look at example number 3, where Molly only has bank interest. Okay, she only has bank interest. So let's have a new page and we will show you how that works. So we are looking at Molly. Ooh, red. Let's go back to black. Molly, income tax computation. 23, 24. Now I'm only going to do a savings column because it's the only income she's got. Okay, so there's no point putting all of them in. If you want to, that's fine, but you don't need to. So she has savings income of 22,500 less her personal allowance of 12,570, which leaves us with a taxable income of 9,930. Okay, so let's do her income tax calculation. So we only have savings income. Okay, we only have savings income. Now, the starting rate, there's no non-savings income. Starting rate, the rule is if the savings income falls within the first £5,000 of taxable income, and you pay no tax on it. So the starting rate, we've got £5,000 at 0%, because her income, she has no other income than this. Now, basic rate taxpayer, so nil rate band of £1,000. Her total income is 9,930. So therefore the balance, and again, the balancing figure, we've already taxed 6, so we're looking at £3,930 will be taxed at basic rate. This is top slicing. This is what the technical term is. So that comes to 9,930 in total. We will tax 3,930 at 20%, and that comes to £786.